Hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, the full lunar eclipse was something to see last night. I hope you got to see it. Not everyone in New Zealand did, but certainly a big chunk of the country did. It was actually a pretty good setup in most places, but the low offshore here did produce a few cloudy areas for some eastern parts of the country. Now we move on to the next big thing, and we've had this low up here all week. Generated huge waves, over 16 metres at one point. Now we're about to get a change. Look at this westerly coming in. In fact, it's a southwesterly when you actually really look at it. Temperatures are about to drop, not just in New Zealand, but right up along the eastern side of Australia. Sydney's high is 15 on Saturday, and Brisbane's got overnight lows in the single digits. So compared to New Zealand, that doesn't sound that bad, but for Australia, that is certainly a bit of a drop coming up. So tonight, it turns colder for the North Island. It was fairly cold last night, but a bit of a breeze still kept things a degree or two higher than they might be tonight. So frosts go as far north as even the Auckland region and some isolated areas. We might be seeing some frosts up there. 8 degrees though in the city centre, right down in the coastal areas. And the South Island, about average as you go further south actually. So it won't be as cold maybe as it's been over the last day or two. Here is the setup for Friday. So that big southerly change is starting to develop. Look at the size of this high, huge. Goes from Darwin all the way down to the bottom of the screen, shaped north to south. For those who've been watching me since 2011 when it snowed up in Northland and Auckland, it was a high shaped like that over Tasmania that produced that event. So I'm always looking for these tall north to south highs because they reach down into the Southern Ocean here and pull up this very cold air. So that starts on Friday and moves into Sydney and Brisbane during the day. Over in New Zealand, we've got that cold change moving into Southland, but it's actually a westerly flow for many other areas. It may not be that bad in the North Island with those westerly winds kicking in and dry and sunny now over on the eastern side. As we go into the weekend, it is not hard to miss this low on Saturday starting to form. 987, that's actually getting down quite low, and it could even get down to the 970s for a time. I've seen that in a couple of the models. Now it's a very big system. It's going to be pulling down some airflows up here around the subtropics, pulling that down and around, and that is likely to produce some very heavy rain in Canterbury. That may well be sort of the ground zero, if you like, for the heavy rain as it moves on in and around this big system. That big cold southerly moving up across Sydney and Brisbane on Saturday, as we just talked about. As we go into Sunday, the low is firmly over the top of the country. You know, it's basically the same size as Australia. So this is a pretty big low. Now, big doesn't always mean bad. As you can see in the middle here, this is pretty calm and dry. So there might be some areas that have no idea that there's this huge low going over them with sunny skies, light winds, nothing to talk about. But it's this clockwise motion pulling down this moisture-rich airflow and pushing it into Canterbury that might cause some problems. There are estimates that parts of Canterbury could get up to 200 millimetres, but it's a narrow area, it's a narrow window. So let me try and explain that to you a little bit better. Here is the system on Sunday. Big system. It's pulling in this air and this airflow coming out of the subtropics. This is where all that moisture gets squeezed down into this easterly that comes in to the Canterbury side. Now you can see these little sort of eddies, if you like, in the atmosphere. That might disrupt that airflow a little bit and see a lot of that rain falling out at sea. But we do expect Canterbury to get some big rainfall totals. This is the IBM estimate, and this area here with the white shading, up to 200 millimetres. Now Canterbury can flood when they get 30 millimetres in one day. So this is going to be a significant event. Now this is over 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, for some parts. Now the tricky part is locking in exactly where. I just showed you those little sort of eddies up in the atmosphere which could control that rainfall. So this area here up around Kaikoura, North Canterbury, that could be the area that gets the most of the rain. But this other map over here is from GFS out of America. Similar thinking, but they're putting the heavy rain a little bit further down into sort of central Canterbury. So there is wiggle room in this forecast is what I'm trying to say with that, but we do expect some heavy rain to come into the east, and with the cold air that will fall as snow. That area up there, potentially getting over 1 metre of snow up around the Kaikoura ranges. These other areas in sort of yellow and gold, 80, centimetres. Did I just say millimetres? I meant centimetres. So yeah, over 1 metre of snow possible there. These other areas getting up to 80 centimetres of snow, maybe more in the mountain tops. It doesn't look as though the Canterbury Plains will get much in the way of snow, but it is possible with the temperatures overnight for a time. Now let's get into Monday. So that big system is moving across, still pretty dry and calm in central New Zealand, but that southerly will start to kick in as that whole system moves along. And by Tuesday, the southerly is right across the North Island, while the South Island starts to get a bit of a westerly change developing in the south. And as we go into June, a big high coming in, but it could be a bit cold to start with. A lot to talk about at the moment. I'll be back again tomorrow with our next update as we go into the weekend.